And with that, we are good to go. Awesome.
Sorry about that.
That is okay. Welcome. Okay, we are good to go. So we are streaming live. Welcome to SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we have a very special guest with us. This is the chairman of the board. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Mackenzie. Thank you very much for having me on. My name's Dan. I have my own YouTube channel talking about board games, mostly Euro-style board games. I talk about them in a bit more detail than the average reviewer, I think. But yeah, I just love the hobby, and very happy to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Great. Now, Dan, when I initially contacted you, I asked you if you would be interested in doing something very similar to your namesake. I wanted to talk about the best boards in the board game hobby. I think there's a lot of choices here, whether it be art, the mechanics themselves. I just think there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about here. But Dan, what do you think? What do you think about the topic as a whole before we get started?
Yeah, it's actually something I've wanted to do myself for quite a while. So really excited to be talking about these ones. And of course, obviously you've got the mechanical side of things, or you've got the the art style things. Now, spoiler alert, I've gone a bit superficial and gone for a very personal style of art that I like on the board. But yeah, obviously there's a lot of different approaches you can take, and there's some good things out there.
Wonderful, fantastic. Well, if you're ready, I'm ready to get started here.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sweet. So I'm going to have you go ahead and go first, and let's start off with our number 10s.
Okay, so my number 10 might be a bit of an easy one to go for, but I think it's done a great job of bringing people into the game in the first place, and this one is Cult Express. So Cult Express was a huge hit from a few years ago. I think it even won the Spiel des Jahres a couple of years back. It's a kind of a game where you are, I suppose, taking part in this kind of, I suppose, a gunfight on the back of a train. But the board itself is a physical 3D train with 2 layers on. You've got like the carriages, and you're basically playing cards, programming them almost, and trying to shoot your opponents, jump on the top of the carriage, jump from carriage to carriage, steal loot from each other. But that physical presence of the board itself has done such a great job of sparking interest for this game. And I think maybe without the board itself, it wouldn't have done so well. And I think that's just such a great credit to how much the board presence can do for a game. And hence why I think it's been so successful. It's because of that really unique physical aspect of that board itself.
I think this is a great pick. So I've actually never played this game. So how does the board integrate into the gameplay?
So as you can see from the picture there, a lot of the cards you play, because you actually play something like face down, everybody's playing at the same time. You're programming where you want your little cowboy to go, but you're like jumping from carriage to carriage, or jumping from roof to back to the ground level. And the idea is that you're trying to avoid being shot, trying to get to certain spaces before other people do, before they kind of punch you and steal your loot from you. It's kind of a 3D like aspect to it, which is the board is needed. It's not just a gimmick. It's actually that physical 2-layer system is needed for the gameplay itself. So it's quite interesting in that respect.
Interesting. So it looks like you have different types of loot on the different levels. This is a really cool system. So I haven't played this one, but robbing a train just sounds like a great theme in general. Any other takeaways from this that we should know?
Just a really nice family weight game, and I think a lot of people wouldn't play this type of game, but as soon as you see that board, they think, this is cool, this is different, this isn't something I've seen before. And I think Cult Express has done a good job of kind of giving itself a little niche because of that, and that's why it's my number 10.
I love it. This is a great choice, Dan. I can't deny it. I haven't played it, so I can't commit any of that. But just seeing it, this is something that I want to give a try. So awesome choice. Awesome choice.
Thank you.
All right. So my number 10 is this is going to be my only one that's based solely on artwork. Well, that's not true. It's got some gameplay mechanics in it as well. But this is a game I actually got to play recently. I actually played it yesterday. This is set in Japan. It is a huge area control game, and the matte version of this board is giant and beautiful. You've got these huge troops that you're pushing around on the map, and this is going to be Rising Sun. So I think that the Rising Sun board is just a work of art. It has the land of Japan separated into neat sections. It's got this wonderful artistic rendition of the kind of Japanese culture mixed in with the artwork. And I think that the way that it's sectioned up also ties really nicely into the gameplay. And yeah, I just think that it does a great job at piecing up Japan in an area control style game. So in particular, I really like, and I'm going to go into the mechanics a little bit with the board, is in lower player counts with the board itself, you're going to have only a few of these wars actually happening. So the game is split into 3 phases. You have a alliance phase, you have the actual action phase, and then you have the battle phase. But when you're playing with lower player counts, the battles are going to be only in certain areas. So I find that really fascinating that this giant board becomes a lot tighter. You're going to have a lot of conflict in those areas, and the board itself kind of opens up opportunity for that, which is really fascinating because you do want to be in these battles. That's where you're going to score the majority of your points, but it might be also good to leave a couple of units in some of the empty areas to harvest those rewards. So I find this really cool where it has this huge, beautiful presence with the board, but it also has this cool aspect of a shrinking board, which I really like.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good pick, Mackenzie. This is actually just off my list, actually, probably about 12th place. So okay. really considered put this one on there because, as you said, the actual artwork itself on the board is great, but that the order of the way the battles are resolved is a really interesting part of the way the map works. And yeah, so really good pick.
Thank you. Thank you. So what do you think of Rising Sun as a whole? Are you a fan of the battle system, or what do you think of this one?
Probably one of my favorite kind of conflict style combat systems out there. That blind bidding with the coins, I absolutely love. This actually used to be my number 1 game of all time about 2-3 years ago. Yeah, I absolutely was enamored with this one when it first came out, because it's got a kind of Euro aspect to it, but still has massive table presence and great miniatures, a great kind of showpiece game, and yeah, a really good pick.
Thank you. So I totally agree. I think that the bidding is the strongest part of this game. So I think, oh man, just the mind games that you can play and the fact that the order that those battles go in, you can bring in money from one battle to another. I just find that really fascinating. And the fact that someone can take a really long time thinking and overthink themselves out of an action, it's really funny.
So also the idea of intentionally losing battles to fund your future battles. I love that as well. That's great.
Yes. Winning the key important battles. So we have Tim is average over here. He has a comment on your Cult Express pick. He says, sometimes a gimmick can really work.
Absolutely.
Like you said, it's not just a gimmick, it's a key aspect of the game. And I think it's going to be one that's going to keep on getting people to enjoy the game, which is cool. So this is it. That's our number 10s. Let's go ahead and jump to number 9s. All right, whenever you're ready, Dan.
Okay, so my number 9 is a smaller Euro style game, and I must admit this one is purely done on the visual aspect. I love the way this game looks. This one is Santiago de Cuba. Now, Santiago de Cuba is not really talked about anymore, but it's by artist Michael Menzel, who is quite known for his boards. But this one has a certain charm about it and a certain kind of grace that just is really hard to put your finger on. It's kind of set around this little kind of harbour port, and the idea is that you're trying to go from spot to spot, almost on like this rondel, visiting different people on the way, picking up resources, and trying to fulfill these orders by the time you get back to the port. But the visual aspect of the game and the actual gameplay itself, I think, really do come together nicely, and it kind of makes a really nice package in terms of the breezy feel, but it still has some interesting decisions. It still has some some Euro-esque mechanisms, but still being extremely accessible. And I think the visual aspect just creates this nice vibe and a nice and just a nice feel of the game. And I really do like this one, particularly just because of the way it looks. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Wow. It takes the idea of like that harbor style game, but adds this beautiful kind of gathering place where you're going to be, I guess, doing your actions. Once again, this is another game I've never played, I've never heard of. So I know what makes you like this one so much, gameplay wise and board wise, I should say.
So yeah, board wise, I seem to love games that have this almost like a cityscape, but kind of a weird view kind of look. It's hard to explain. Yeah, I just love this kind of look of a game. But the gameplay itself, I think it's a really nice intro level game that has some pretty basic worker placement spots. It has some pretty simple kind of resource gathering and almost contract fulfilling. So it's got some really nice introductory kind of mechanisms, but still kind of does a good job of helping people dip their toe into this style of game. And certainly the aesthetic of the game doesn't hurt either. And I think people will walk away from this one feeling just a bit charmed by it. And that's the vibe I take away from this one.
And I was looking, this came out in 2009. Is that correct?
Yeah, quite old now. Don't really hear anybody talk about this one nowadays. But yeah, I still really like it, and I do recommend it to people.
I feel like this is the art style that games like Puerto Rico should have been going in. I mean, this is great. I really like it. It's really inviting.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. Very inviting. Yeah, and but it still has that. Yeah, has kind of a realism feel, but just a certain warmth to it that I really like.
Great choice, Dan. Awesome. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
Just check it out, because I think this one's a bit a bit of a hidden gem now, kind of bit maybe faded into obscurity now, but worth checking out, I think.
So that's Santiago de Cuba, Dan's number 9. Awesome. All right. So my number 9 here is a reprint of a game. Well, it's kind of like a reprint sequel. And this game features 2 different types of artwork. It's going to have one side that is night and one side that is day. So if you're having trouble seeing the board, you can definitely pick the side that's going to help out with that. But the game is absolutely wonderful. The deluxification that occurred during the second printing is, bar none, one of the best improvements I've seen. Any ideas what it is, Dan?
Brass?
You are correct. It's going to be Brass Birmingham specifically. So Brass Birmingham features a double-sided board that actually is not only beautiful, but it's also functional in the way it works. So the way that the board is set up is you're going to have these different sections that are colored, and based on the colors of the section, you include those cards in the deck based on your player count. And those cards in the deck will allow you to reach certain areas of the board. And you can still access them, though, even if those cards are not in the deck. So it's a weird kind of like you're sectioning off parts of the board, but you're also keeping you're sectioning them off by removing the cards, but you can still access them. So they're still there. It's not something completely out of the game, which I think is a really cool system, as opposed to games like Power Grid, where you're kind of just completely covering a piece of the board and it's just pretend it's not there, while this is still in kind of like the zeitgeist of something that you could potentially do to extend your network if you need a specific resource. So I really like the functionality of the board, how it can be tight, but you can also expand if you need to, which I think is really interesting from a mechanics wise. It also features a bunch of really awesome new revamped artwork. Roxley did a great job with this. I love that it is that double-sided, and I just think it's a treat that you have all this choice in this super variable version of the original Brass game. So I really enjoy Brass Birmingham, and I love what they did with the new artwork. Okay, have you played a Brass at all?
No, I haven't actually. It's probably one of my confessions that I've never played any Brass game. Yeah, I don't know why. I can't even give you a reason why I haven't, but I've just never kind of pulled that trigger of playing this one. In fact, Martin Wallace games in general is something I've not really dived into, so probably should do, because I've heard nothing but good things about Brass.
So it's this one specifically has climbed really highly on like the BGG Top 100 recently. I think it's like 3 or 4 now, actually. And I think a lot of it has to do with the variability that was introduced in this one. So specifically, Brass Birmingham, it has the scalable player count, that scalable board that's not really cut off, and that it also has the variety in the different markets and how the board is going to be set up. So I think it's a really cool addition of a game. And Tim here, he says specifically to the board, he's seen the original Brass, and I totally agree with him. Have you seen the original Brass before?
I have, but I can't. It doesn't come to mind what it looks like.
It looks like, I mean, we can look it up here, but it looks like straight up one of the games that you would find in a magazine that you would print out.
Right.
So yeah, something my dad would play, where you would print out these things and you'd place them on the board. It's kind of wild. Let's see if we could find a picture of this. But oh man, I do strongly recommend that if you have the ability to play Brass Birmingham, jump on it. It's a fairly simple rule set with a whole bunch of deep strategy. I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I know this is something I need to do. So yeah, it's something.
Oh, and here we go. Here's the original Brass player boards. So you can kind of see that there. Oh man. So this looks like the Brass turn order track and the old school player boards. These are the old school industry tiles, just these big bright yellow tiles.
Doesn't quite have the same impact, does it?
It definitely doesn't grab you as much. Thanks for bringing that up, Tim. I appreciate it. But that's my choice for number 9. Any other comments on this?
No, just I need to check this one out ASAP.
Absolutely. All right, go ahead, Dan. Let's go into your number 8.
Okay, so my number 8 is actually one based on its function. This one is Barrage. Now, Barrage is a relatively involved economic style game where you are, I suppose, supposed to be these kind of power tycoons trying to harness and convert water into energy, trying to get points. A lot going on in this game. You know, it has pretty much everything involving the kitchen sink. You know, well, apart from the kitchen sink in this game, you know, you've got worker placement, you've got like resource management, you've got this really cool resource wheel where you've got to allocate your resources to build buildings. But the board itself is so interesting because it's essentially a mountainscape where you have these different dams built in 3 different levels. So you've got like the ones really high up in the mountain, you've got the ones halfway down the mountain, and you've got the ones kind of at the base level. And the idea is you're trying to build these dams and collect water and convert that water into energy by building these conduits and power stations. But the way that all these different dams kind of connect to each other by these kind of, I suppose, these networks is so interesting, as you can you're trying to build in front of other people to grab the water that they're going to get in their dams. And you're trying to use other people's conduits to to bring them to your stations. So I love the way that everything is just interconnected to this one, and I really can't think anything quite like this one. And with a lot of these kind of heavier games, all their weight is based into the actual the mechanisms, the rules overhead. But this one, all the juice and all the satisfying crunchiness is all in the way that the board interacts with each other. And I absolutely adore this game. I was blown away with this one. And yeah, love it. Have you played this one, Mackenzie?
I love it. This is actually a 10 out of 10 game for me. I think this game is amazing. This was on my list for this. It's not on my top 10, but it was 11 or 12. It was around there. But I completely agree with everything you're saying. I love the mechanics of this game. I love that you start with a bunch of workers and it's up to you to decide what to do with them. I love that it's so cutthroat. And it reminds me, if you like this, you'll probably like Brass a lot because it has some of those shared things where, yeah, you can build a dam, but if you build the dam, I'm just gonna build the dam right above yours. Or I'd love if you built a conduit for me. That would be great. Or things like that. It's the opportunistic economic game. It's so cool. I love it. I love it. Great choice.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm so impressed with this one. And a bit like Brass, really. I don't know why I didn't buy this one when it first came out. I only tried this one. I think it was January of this year, and instantly 10 out of 10 for me. Loved it.
I agree with you. It shares a lot of similarities with games like Gaia Project and Terra Mystica with the way you're kind of moving pieces off your board to build your better engine. I love the resource wheel, and I'm very similar to you. This is one that I tried late in 2020. And
Okay.
I was able to jump onto I think it was the Maharaja Kickstarter. So I was able to get in on some of the promos and like the 5th player expansion, things like that. So I wanted to make sure we had those for the library because this game is that good. Like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, so good. I love this game. Yeah. Great pick. Great pick.
Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, awesome choice. Awesome choice. So I can't say enough positives about that game.
No, same. Love it.
Oh, that's super exciting. So my game is very different. This game is going to be the exact opposite. This is all about dice chucking and moving around and being as frantic as possible. Instead of tracking your time on a resource wheel, you're going to be tracking your time with a 2-minute timer. You're going to be destroying aliens as they appear, coming down from space as you try to complete a mission of some sort. Any idea what I'm talking about?
Is it Under Falling Skies?
Not quite. This one is a cooperative game that can play up to 6. This is going to be Project Elite. So Project Elite, have you ever heard of this game?
I've heard of it, never played it.
Okay, so this one is Starship Troopers, the game. You take place as these crazy space marines, and you all have your own special ability. But the big thing that makes this game different is it's a real-time kind of troop destruction game. But the best thing about it is the way it kind of implements the real-time nature. It's a cooperative game where it's impossible to piggyback, and not piggyback, quarterback, but you're going to be constantly asking for help. And it's up to the other players to decide if they want to help you, because you are doing your actions and you know what you need to do. But the whole setting is on this wonderful board, and it is so ugly, but it's so functional. And this is completely function over I guess aesthetics, but this board does exactly what it needs to do. So the core mechanic in the game has you summoning aliens on the board, and you can see clearly on this board there's lots of arrows on the board. And these arrows dictate where the aliens are going to be moving. So whenever you decide to roll on your turn, everybody's playing simultaneously, right? So you roll the dice, and if you get one of these red skull symbols, that means that your job is, before you do anything else, you have to move an alien on the path. You can choose where, 1 space, and you're just moving them on the path. And it's really fascinating because immediately when that shows up, you have to decide what you're going to do, where you're going to move it. And you can talk to the other players before you do this, but the longer you take, the less time that you have to do something. So it's really interesting. You know the exact paths everybody's going to take, but there's more efficient ways to move things. And sometimes you don't want to move something because it could accidentally move out of range if somebody else is shot. It's so fascinating. And there's like 6 different boards for this game, but each board lays out the movement really well. So the arrows, they look kind of terrifying at first to kind of be like, what the heck does this mean? But they really are super helpful. And it just makes a game that could be chaotic and a mess into something that's very manageable. And I think that this game does that in the best possible way. So I really enjoy this. I'm not a big fan of real-time games at all. But this is one that I will make this huge exception for because it handles it in the best way possible.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah, because if you say that your real-time games aren't generally your thing, same with me really. I'm not a huge fan of real-time games, and generally I shy away from sci-fi games in general, to be honest, because it just doesn't do it for me. But interesting to see, for you to say that it's not your thing either, and it still transcends that, and it's still really good. So again, I've only ever heard good things about, and I would be interested in playing it, but maybe not buying it myself before I know what it's like.
I totally understand that. It's a pretty intimidating purchase, that's for sure. But if you get a chance, this is a great one to jump into. It's really easy to learn. The dice mechanics are straightforward. The way combat works is really well done. And the boards are very newcomer friendly, which is what I really enjoy.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll definitely be up for trying it one day. But I won't be buying it.
I'm glad you've made up your mind on this one. Excellent.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Let's go to number 7s.
So number 7 for me is probably, I think, the game that would instantly spring to mind when you think of, what as a cool board, apart from Cult Express. This one is Sulkin the Mayan Calendar. one of my favorite games of all time. Been definitely a top 5 game since I've been in the hobby, really. This one is a worker placement game set in the kind of ancient South America, Mayan times, and it's a game where the board is essentially made up of these 5 different gears or cogs. Of all different resource kind of genres. So one's associated to collecting your wood and your stone. One's where you're going to be collecting different things like crystal skulls, and you can use another wheel to deposit those crystal skulls to get points. But at the end of every turn, you kind of rotate this central gear, which will manipulate all the other resource spots where you've got your workers allocated, shifting them up onto more powerful spots as time goes by. But because on your turn, you either have to deploy workers or you have to take them off, sometimes you have to map your turns extremely carefully and precisely in order to reap the biggest rewards. And I love the way that you're forced to play strategically with this one. You can't just do short-term gains. You do have to think about, if I place this one here, I've got 3 workers left in my hand. In three goes time, that'll be here, so I can take it off to combine it with this spot over here now. Just an absolutely brilliant puzzle with a solid worker placement game underneath it, and it just what a masterpiece of a game this one is. One of the best Euros ever made, in my opinion. Have you played this one?
I really like this game. So yes, definitely play this one. I love the gears. I love the decision on your turn of putting out workers or picking them up. I like that you're not forced to put out all your workers and you can put them one at a time. And I like that the placement of everybody's workers matter. And I think it's so well done. And like you said, it's the first game that really comes to your mind when you think of a list like this, and you're going to be putting stuff out on a board and interacting with the board. And I think that's huge. I think that kind of elevates this game, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I suppose no one else has actually kind of copied this one, have they? It's very strange that nobody else has come up with this or kind of piggybacked on it or made their own version of it. It really does, it's a quite unique game in that respect, that this is the game with the gears and you automatically think of Zolkin. And I love it. It's great.
I think this is a wonderful choice. And we got all sorts, like you can paint the gears. They look wonderful. You can really make this one your own. And I think that anything that you can do with that just really elevates the whole experience. So I think this is a great pick, Dan.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Any other things you want to add?
No, one of my favorite games, not only for its function, but its lurk, it's everything. What a complete game. Absolutely agree. Great pick. All right. So my number 7 is from one of my favorite designers. This is a game where you're going to be out in the Southwest of the United States, and you're going to be wrangling some cattle. So it's pretty often dissed for its cover art, but it's going to be fixed with a new printing, hopefully this year during around Gen Con time. Any ideas? I am going to guess. Is it? Oh, I forgot his name. The Western one, the sandboxy one. Western Legends?
Not quite. Oh, Great Western Trail.
Oh, okay. No, what I was thinking.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So now you said about the new cover coming out. Now I know what you mean.
There you go. So I was thinking about Western Legends, but I think that this one is not only. I think this one is it's not the prettiest game in the world, but it's super functional. And that's my favorite part of this board, is how functional it is. So in this game, you're going to be playing on a map. It's a big rondelle, so you're going to be going round and around and around on this trail. But the best part of this game is you're going to be adding to the trail. And that is the coolest part. You're going to be building these buildings that are going to cater to a specific strategy of yours, and you'll be placing it onto the board itself. Now, you can place them just in an area on the path, and you can easily go to it. You can block other people's movement, kind of interfere with them getting to their specific spots on the trail, or you can place them in these hazardous areas. And I think that is super cool. So the hazardous areas are often blocked by these tokens that will make you incur an income penalty. So you have to pay some money to go there. But if you do put them there, you generally will get some type of really cool bonus. So this could be sifting extra cards in your hand, getting extra ribbons to make that next sale that much better. It's going to basically give you an incentive to go around this hazardous area. And I think that's really neat that not only are you building out the board, but you're getting lots of options when you do. I like that the board itself is just one big rondel, but it's kind of made in this way where it's not super apparent at first when you jump into it. But I really love the choices and the expansion of the game and how it evolves as you play. So I really like it. Carpenter strategy we found to be incredibly strong, and mixing it with one of the engineer or the cowboy strategies has turned out to be really fun as well. So really like this game. I think that the expanding board is one of the best ones.
Yeah, it's a solid game, and you said he's one of your favorite designers, Alexander Pfister. One of my favorite designers too. But funny enough, despite the the massive hype around Great Western Trail, it's actually probably not even my top 3 Pfister games, weirdly enough. Which is quite, I would definitely put Maracaibo at the top.
I agree.
I'd probably put this pretty controversial Blackout, then Isle of Skye, and then Great Western Trail.
Okay, is Blackout that good? Like actually?
I really love it. I know it's probably not widely popular as Western Trail, whatever. A bit lighter, but yeah, I really like the card system in Blackout. Has kind of a more kind of synergy with Mombasa, so I should put Mombasa higher up on that list as well. But yeah, I love, as you said, the pacing of this one is quite interesting because it's one of those games where you start off taking quick turns and then you end up taking longer turns, don't you? Because there's more, as the map gets more and more buildings put down on it. It has a weird pacing to it. But yeah, I did enjoy this one. It's a really solid game. Yeah, visually not quite my cup of tea, but yeah, functionally certainly does a good job.
And I didn't even cover the expansion. So this has a Rails to the North expansion that's going to have you interacting with the trains in a unique way. And you can see it here really well. So it adds more regions and more rewards and bonuses to go for. And I really like that. It gives you that satisfying, almost like a roll and write satisfaction feel where you're getting mini bonuses as you play. So I really like that expansion. It adds more to that delivery track, which I think is definitely needed. So I think they did a great job with this. And then Tim is Average has a comment here. He says they're making a New Zealand version. So I think that's really cool as well. I'm excited to see how the board evolves. I'm sure the artwork will be incredible in these new versions. And I'm sure we'll find, I don't know, what's the animal in New Zealand? Is it, what am I expecting to see?
Sheep, I suppose.
No idea.
No idea.
So we'll see. But man, now you got me thinking. So Board Game Bliss has Blackout Hong Kong on sale for like $20 right now. So I might jump on that. I got to give it a try, right? I'll take your recommendation here. Yeah, I got to pick some of your recommendations from this list, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Awesome.
Okay.
So let's go ahead, jump to your number 6, please.
So my number 6 is purely on the aesthetic. I actually don't like this game at all. So that's how. Yeah.
Okay.
This one is. I imagine it's probably a game that you've not played. This one is Court of the Dead: Mourner's Call.
Oh.
This one is a game in the vein of a game like Rising Sun. So it's a big dudes on the map game, lots of miniatures. Obviously, more. Not saying Rising Sun isn't fantasy based, but this one has that kind of underworld, dark theme, which normally isn't my cup of tea. I don't like this all doom and gloom stuff. I do love fantasy, but this one, the board presence is absolutely phenomenal. It has this huge board, all in really dark tones, all black, and it has this almost like pearlescent river going through it, and it looks absolutely stunning. Gameplay itself is a bit of an overkill of mechanisms. You've got drafting in there, you've got kind of a worker placement, area control style thing, lots going on, and I think it kind of had a bit of an identity crisis in what it was trying to go for. And yeah, it was no way up to the scratch of a game like Blood Rage or Rising Sun. But if this board could be used in in another game like that, I would love that because it just looks amazing. I think I think I don't know if you're familiar with the Court of the Dead intellectual property.
I haven't, to be honest, the only review or anything I've heard of Court of the Dead is from you in like your board games I've culled videos. So that's the only thing I know about this game is your negative opinion about it. It's a shame because I love the look of this one. It's quite an interesting
interesting IP, because it's like a fantasy-based underworld political kind of drama thing. It's not all death and kill and that kind of thing. It's a bit more intelligent than that. But the card drafting just in this game wasn't very good. It was just take your pick and everything's fine. Same with all the worker placement spots. It was all just okay. If somebody snatched a spot you wanted, you could go somewhere else and it wouldn't be too much of an issue. And I think that kind of makes things fall a bit flat. But yeah, while the miniatures themselves weren't the best, the actual board I couldn't get enough of, and I would, especially because it's got this kind of glossy. Everything else is matte, but the river itself has got this glossy feel to it, and it just looks great, and I love it.
Wow. Okay, I'm loving it. I like how it's this dark world, but it's also this. It looks like it's alive. It's bright. So I see where you're going with the aesthetics here. It looks wonderful.
Yeah, and in person it looks even better. So the pictures don't do this justice, but yeah.
So did you keep this game because of the board, or is it gone?
No, it was gone. It was gone. So, yeah.
Got it. Anything else you want to add?
No. Again, purely superficial, but yeah, love the look of this one.
Awesome. So that's Court of the Dead: Mourner's Call. Super exciting. Okay. So terrible game, but beautiful. Now, this next one here on my list is a new to me Euro game. So this came out last year in 2020, near the end of the year. One of the kind of most basic themes in the world. You're building up a city in a European town, but the art direction they chose for this game is really interesting. And you also have these 3D components that pop off of the board that you're going to be constructing as you play. In addition, it has this really cool action selection system that also has a really cool incentive system built into the board itself. So it's this 3D component. It's known as the action crane. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about here?
Yes, Praga Caput Regni.
You got it. Praga Caput Regni. So this is by Vladimir Suhi. It's honestly one of the smoothest Euros I've played in a while. And it's just a blast. Like whenever I play this game, the decisions are pretty quick. You get to pick some cool paths as you start, and you can improve your actions, and the board itself really plays into all of this, as it's this huge tapestry of beautiful artwork and this very unique theme. And just the history and everything that's kind of put into the game is a lot of fun to dive into. So my favorite part about this was in the back of the rulebook, it comes with kind of a brief little history lesson on all the different portions of the game. It's going to basically tell you what you're constructing. So this is the Charles Bridge. This is why you're using eggs. This is the hunger wall. And it has all these really unique tidbits. And it all comes together to make this really fancy presentation. And I can't get enough of it, honestly. This is one that I really like to pull out recently. I really like the action crane system here. I think that's just really unique, and that it's built into the board, and that it also has a function of serving as a timer. You see the wood block here, it will kind of slot into the board itself to let you know, hey, you got to stop. This is the end of the round. Move things along. It's cool. It's so well done. It's smooth. Your actions are quick. I really like this one. I think this is a fantastic game. Dan, have you played this one?
I have. It was my number one from last year.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal game. And yeah, a big portion of that is the functionality of the board. And while there's a lot going on in this game, it's so easy to teach and digestible. And it's just the satisfying combos in this game is fantastic. And yeah, I love the visual of this game as well. Not only by the way it looks, but the player boards are great because they have those cubes on it. So when you get to this spot, upgrade here and put it here. And yeah, everything is just wonderfully produced and just completely functional. Yeah, amazing game. And again, another one that was on my very short list. So just didn't make the list.
Yeah, and this game is wonderful. It has that satisfying feeling that I get when I play the roll and writes again. It's got the tiny little bonus actions that you're going to be getting. They interlock. You take quick turns, but you're getting these little things that keep on compiling, and it keeps me wanting to come back more. So I really like this one. I think the board really plays into it. And as you said, everything is like to the max. Everything is indented. You have your personal player boards here that also have that same functionality. You're putting things inside of the board. You're placing tiles to build steps on a bridge. It's so cool. It's so rewarding, and I think it's a blast. I really like this one.
Yeah, incredible game, incredible.
Dennis Average says that's a mouthful. I agree. This name it's pretty long, and I sound kind of pompous when I say it. Oh, we're playing Praga Cup with Regni today, but I think it's fun. I think this game's wonderful. You just call it Praga if you're not feeling the whole thing.
Yeah,
but
and yeah, really kind of opened my eyes to Vladimir Suki games. As soon as I played this one, I've started to go back and play his old games now. Loved Underwater Cities and stuff. So yeah, really good that this one has really lit that spark for me and put him on the map. And whatever he puts out now, I will.
Have you tried Pulsar yet?
I've got it on my to play. I've got it upstairs, ready to be played, but I've not played it yet.
It's a fun one. I think you'll enjoy it. It reminds me it's just a good dice drafting game. It gives me kind of like a Castles of Burgundy vibe, honestly. So if you enjoy that game, you'll probably enjoy that one. But it's great. I'm really happy that you enjoy Underwater Cities.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and jump to number 5.
Okay. So my number 5 is probably a game that is going to be a bit love it or hate it, at least in the way it looks. This one is Navigador by Matt.
Okay.
This one, I think, again, it's going to be quite jarring. People might think this looks bland because this is the quintessential Euro-looking board. It's brown. It's just a map of the world. But there's something about the look of this game that I absolutely love. It's got a kind of a longer style board. It's not your traditional look of a game, but it does have some good functional parts to it as well. The rondel is on the board. It's got some like a live market on the board as well, where you can buy and sell things, and supply and demand is going up and down. But this old worldy look, it just has a certain appeal to it for me that just does it for me. And I think maybe the strong gameplay, because I love the game itself, is a big part of that. But I don't know what it is. I don't even think I can put it into or articulate why I like the look of this game so much. But I just do. What are your initial thoughts looking at that board now?
So I actually get it. So this gives me the same vibes as when I see a game like PAX Pamir 2nd Edition. It feels like this cool rustic map, and it looks pretty, it looks digestible, friendly, but something that I want to learn more about. I get what you're saying. It's really hard to articulate this, but I do enjoy it. Why? I'm not sure why. I like the little nobles up at the top. I think you're right. I think that the rondel it's kind of funny that the rondel's just kind of chilling, but it fits. I really can't say anything negative about this. I think it does look solid. I like that it is that large board. I like that it kind of reminds me of a Concordia feel, actually.
Well, yeah, same designer as Concordia. But yeah, funny enough as well, because whenever I bring this now, I always think, whoever I play this with is not going to like the look of this one. They're going to get turned away from it instantly. Alarm bells going off. This isn't going to be fun. But not only is it a fun game, but everybody I've actually played it with always comments saying, "I like the look of this board. It looks cool." And it's hard to put your finger on, as you said. I just can't. I can't know why I like this game so much and love the way it looks. And I just a certain timeless aesthetic to it that I just love.
So I really like that the map itself is like a darker tone, but there's color around it, and I think that's really cool. It's bringing your eyes to like the surrounding board, and it kind of gives a 3D feel to it. Does that make sense? Like you're kind of falling into the map. I don't know. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting. I don't have a huge eye for art, so maybe that's just me making stuff up. But who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. It's just one of those things. Just has a certain magic to it, and I just. Everything you need is on the board, and also something I should mention as well is that the actual board itself dictates the pace of the game, because there's no like rounds or phases in this game. People just take their turns.
Okay.
But when you get to certain checkpoints on the map by traveling from west to east, you get to certain checkpoints which will automatically ramp up the prices of all the different things you can buy. Okay. So it's a fantastic game. First of all, this is like a 9 out of 10 for me.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, functionally it's really good. But yeah, mostly the look. I just adore it.
All right. So this is another one I haven't tried. I feel like I have an expansion to this somewhere that came with some Concordia tiles, but this is a 9 out of 10 game. Okay. So
Yeah,
this is
it's not,
one
yeah,
worth trying.
yeah, absolutely. One of the best games I have.
Wow. Wow. Okay, I've got quite the list here. Oh goodness. Okay, it's gonna be a long month, Dan. All right. So that is your number 5, Navigador. Am I
Yeah,
pronouncing that right?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know. Why not?
Okay. So my number 5 here is going to be a cooperative game that has this really cool modular board that you can construct in multiple ways. And that's why I like it so much. It's kind of an anti-colonialism theme. It takes the popular trope of settling in an island and putting it on its head. Any ideas what I'm talking about here?
Spirit Island.
You got it. This is going to be Spirit Island. So Spirit Island has you are taking control of a spirit that is repelling these colonials from coming in and basically blighting your land. But the coolest part of this is the board, in my opinion. So the board, well, that's not true. I think the game is also incredible, but the board is really cool, and that's why it's so high up on this list. It's so simple at what it does, and all it really is doing is accounting for player count. You have these sections, and each player brings a board with them. And so the boards are these really strange, like leaf shape, but the way that you play with them is based on the player count, you organize them in a specific way. So as you can see here, this is set up for a 3-player game. It's pretty busy to look at, but you can clearly see based on the shapes that are kind of put on the board here what land type is which. And this is the basic side is what it's called, but it actually has a secondary side as well. So all of these tiles are double-sided. You'll have one that looks just like this, and then you'll have another that's called the thematic side. And these thematic sides are going to be just that. They're going to be thematic. They're going to have all of these mountains and valleys, and it's going to look more of what you would see if you actually looked at an island. And I think that's super fascinating. I think it's really cool that they're able to keep this thematic touch to the board, and I love that it scales the player count. So we'll look here. This looks like it's a 6-player game, maybe. No, this is a 4-player game. And as you can see, you have a completely different layout when you're playing with a 4-player game. The new expansion, Jagged Earth, added additional ways that you can separate the island, even having like your own little archipelagos, which is really interesting. And there's a picture here of the what is it called? The advanced boards, so the thematic boards. Here it is. So these are super fascinating as well. So the thematic boards have like the spirits on the board themselves. So you can kind of see where certain spirits might live. They're separated. You have these huge mountain ranges, and you can actually form them to create a island that makes sense, which is really fascinating. And it adds for some really interesting situations and scenarios because you might have a giant clump of forest in one section that one spirit really needs to go deal with. And maybe you're the one covering the oceans, and you've got to make sure that you have somebody protecting the mountains that kind of run through the land. So I really like the dual purpose boards, and I like the way that you organize them and structure them, as well as just the complete modularity of the system. I think it's wonderfully done. I think it totally makes sense. And I like that a lot of the cards are going to reference boards specifically, and I think it does a great job with that as well. So I really like Spirit Island, and I think the boards here I think they're wonderful.
Okay, cool. Yeah, another game I haven't played. Again, I don't quite know why, because nothing but praise for this game. You know, again, extremely highly ranked. I mean, just been on a complete streak to the top of the charts, really, hasn't it? But yeah, I like the look of it. Cooperative games generally aren't something I go towards, but certainly interested in trying this one out. Looks interesting. Love a modular board, and yeah, I don't quite know why I haven't pulled the trigger on this one either.
I like how on our list we just have a lot of games that neither has played. So
Yeah.
this is good. If anybody's watching this, you're getting lots of suggestions for just wonderful pieces of art. I think that these have the gameplay to back it up as well, except for Court of the Dead. Don't do that one. But yeah, I really like Spirit Island. I think they crushed it with the board design, but I would say do not get the playmat. The playmat has the boards fixed. So you can't
Um,
enjoy any of that modularity. And if you're playing with if lower player counts, then you have spots of the board that you're not using, and that's just really annoying. So I would not recommend the playmat on this one. It only works if you're playing exactly 6 players. So I would step away from that one. My opinion. So you might think differently. Maybe you like playmats that much, but I think I think it looks great as is. All right, let's go ahead and jump to number 4.
Okay, so my number 4 is a game set in England, where I'm from. This one is Letters from Whitechapel.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, this one it's a pretty streamlined hidden movement game. You know, one versus all style game where one person plays Jack the Ripper, and the other players are police officers trying to find where Jack the Ripper is by deducing the different spots he's been to, trying to follow his trail, and basically try to catch him before a certain amount of rounds go by. Jack is trying to get from a certain spot where he's just murdered somebody, and trying to get back to his secret lair. And the idea is that the players are trying to work out where that lair could be, work out what the possible routes he could be taking. Very frustrating game, but a very clean and good game, to be fair. But the board in this game looks absolutely amazing. It's like a bit of a throwback, and probably what you'd expect from a hidden movement game. You got a city, well, basically a map of London, all the different numbers written on it, all the different spots you can go to. But it's not only just the kind of the sepia old map style look that looks great. It's all the kind of detail that goes around that map. You've got like little blood stains on there. You've got like where someone's left their glasses on there, and you've got like an inkwell and a fountain pen, and all those little details just really do add to the theme. It's just, I think it strikes a great balance of being, a traditional style board game, but still having really strong gameplay that can bring it into, this era of board gaming. And I think it has this almost evergreen, constantly fresh feel to it. And I've had this game in my collection for a long, long time, and not even slightly considering getting rid of this one. I think the pictures you've got there have the figures on there. I think that might be from expansion, but the main board itself from the core box just has your traditional like player pawns, and I think that almost adds to the charm of the game.
I like it. So I really like this board. The whole idea of this like investigative theme. I like how it's like you're there. You are planning. You're sitting there around the table, you and your crew, as you're trying to figure out what's going on. I really like the theme. Now, I don't really care for the game, to be honest. I think I think it's fine. I don't think this is one I'd ever pull out, but I love the aesthetic. I think this is a great pick for this list.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, I can understand why it's not everybody's everybody's thing. And so, to be honest, a lot of the time I don't fancy playing this one because I do find it quite frustrating. But I still think it's a solid game, and a big part of that is the whole immersion of it. I think there's even quite a bit of flavor text in the book as well. Who these police officers were, who these prostitutes were who were murdered, and all this kind of thing. So it's got a lot of like prestige and history backing up what this game is about, and I really enjoy it.
The whole aesthetic really reminds me of the same one that's used in like the Sherlock Holmes consulting detective books. So like so similar vibes. Like you've got the big map, you're making your plan, and I really like that. Like you were mentioning, the flavor text and the theme of this game. It doesn't seem like it would be apparent, but I think the art and the board really sells you on the theme. So I really enjoy that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one that again maybe wouldn't jump instantly to mind, but once you play this one, this is one that I had to have on this list because I do think it fits this list really well. I think
this is a good choice, Dan. And then Tim, he says this is a really diverse list. It's great. Thank you. I appreciate it, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Awesome. So we have huge amount of diversity. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. My number 4 is another game that I like exclusively for the board, honestly. It's the biggest reason that I come back to it. It's a game that I played a lot when I first got it, and it's one of my wife's favorite games. But this is a worker placement game where you are going to be doing some farming, and you are going to be going through an entire year by jumping from season to season to season. So the expansion board is what I'm explicitly talking about here. It changes the base game and separates an entire year into 4 seasons. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
So you're making wine. This is going to be viticulture. So in viticulture, you are an owner of a farm. Sorry, a vineyard, I should say. So I didn't want to give it away too easily. But you're going to be owning a vineyard. And in this vineyard specifically, you're going to be growing wine. So you need to plant your grapes. You got to crush the grapes. You got to turn them into wine. And then you got to age them to make sure that the people are getting what they need. But the biggest thing that separates this game from other worker placement style games is it has you playing an entire year. And each year is broken up into, go figure, 4 seasons. And each of these seasons is going to basically give you an opportunity to spend workers, and then when you pass, you move to the next season and everybody else can continue doing actions. So it's a weird mix of how many workers am I willing to risk by moving them into later seasons because there are less overall actions to take, or do I spend them early and not have them for later seasons? So I really like that system, and I think that the gameplay is really smooth with how you're going to be getting your actions. And the board is super functional, and by separating it into 4 seasons, I think it just makes a lot of sense, as opposed to keeping it in the original 2 seasons. It just had the winter and the summer before. So I'm trying to find a good picture here for it. I think this is the best one that I'm going to get here. Have you played Viticulture at all? Is this one that you enjoy?
I haven't, and
okay.
Yeah,
Another one.
Yeah, this is one of the most popular games out there. To be honest, I'm a bit skeptical on worker placement games that don't have a certain niche about them, and because I've got a history of not kind of getting on with them too well, I find them a bit samey. And I've also heard some things about there's some significant moments of luck in card draws in this game. I don't know. I've not really looked into the gameplay mechanisms. I don't really know how it plays out. But just taking the kind of DNA of this game, it's not something that's compatible with what I look for generally. But I will reserve judgment. I do want to play this one, but I'll play someone else's before picking it up myself. But yeah, I love the theme. I like the different idea, different concepts, and it does look very nice. But yeah, I've not played it myself.
So this picture does a really good job of showcasing the different seasons. So you can see on the left here, they're separated by color. So you start with the spring, and then you go to the summer, and then you go fall, and then winter. And it's really nice because you can kind of tell what actions are being done more heavily. In this game, you can see that the season on the far right, so winter, is being probably the most populated, so it might be during a later part of the game. I also really like this section up here. So if you look at the corner here, this is what's called the wake up track, and I think this is a really fascinating system. So each player has a rooster that they'll be using, and this rooster you'll put on one of the steps here. So you can choose 1 to 7, and the step that you choose determines your turn order for the round. But if you go to the bottom, you're going to get a bunch of rewards. So you're going to go last, but you're going to get a bunch of good stuff. You get an extra worker, you get a card of your choice, you get a guarantee to go first next round. So you have lots of cool options here. And you decide when you're going to wake up as soon as you run out of workers. So when you pass for the season, you immediately decide. So it's kind of risky to be spending all your workers more or quicker than everybody else. And I really like that as soon as you pass, you just do it. So there's no like, hey, we got to stop and plan the next round. You're constantly taking action. So it really helps with the flow of the game as well. And it's got that nice little reminder at the bottom there as well. But the big thing here is the seasons themselves and the wake up track. I think it just does so well. But I totally agree with your point. Oh, sorry, go for it, Dan.
I was going to say that something like that wake up track, that intrigues me. So that's interested me a lot more than what I knew about it before. So the little something a bit different that adds a bit of flavor. That sounds really interesting.
So I totally agree with you, and it's one of the reasons that I don't come back to this a lot. Is the randomness is huge. Some of the cards that you can get, they're visitor cards. There's an action on the board where you can play them, and some of those visitors are just super strong. And you see those, and you're like, oh my gosh, how did you get this card? But there are these new expansions that fix that a little bit. It kind of I guess, averages out the power level of the different cards, and it puts them more on a focus on the wine making itself as opposed to just flat out scoring points or getting a huge advantage. So I think that the Tuscany with the newest visitor set, I think, makes the game that I want to come back to. So
Okay.
if that's something you're interested in, I would ask to play with the new set of visitors if you are going to try this for the first time with somebody.
Yeah, that sounds more something I'd look for.
So Tim says here that he hasn't integrated Tuscany yet. He's waiting till he gets bored of the base game. Now, Tim, I say just jump into it. I think it's absolutely worth it. Get that second board. It's that good. And you can always go back to the base game if you don't like it, but that would be my recommendation. But he's a fan. We'll take it. That's my number 4. Are you ready to move on?
Ready to move on?
Yeah. All right, let's go. Number 3.
Right, so number 3 is going to be a bit different because it's actually a game I've never played. So yeah, I didn't know,
okay.
I didn't know if this was going to be a criteria for the list.
No, you're
not,
fine. Do whatever you want.
This game, I would, if I saw this out there, I would buy this one straight away. I can't find it available anywhere. Purely based on the look. This one is a game called Porto. I don't know much about this game whatsoever, other than the board itself looks absolutely incredible. So a bit like, I suppose, Santiago de Cuba. This one, I suppose, based in Portugal. This one, you are kind of at this kind of water level where you're looking up at this village scape, I suppose. And it's this cartoony style art, but amongst this village scape, you've got all these wacky and weird things going on. You've got like a dragon. You've got like you have to see this game to understand what I'm talking about, to appreciate what I'm looking about.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at it now. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm pulling it up. Holy cow, you aren't kidding. Keep going.
I would happily put this on my wall as a piece of art. I absolutely love the way this game looks.
So there's our dragon. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what the gameplay's like. I think it's a relatively simple, simple kind of building making game where you're collecting cards and putting things down. But the actual way it looks, I think it just looks incredible. And I don't know if the art was made for the game or the art was made and the game used the art. But I love it. It looks amazing.
Oh, this is fun. There's a squeaky hammer. There is a bunch of library books. This is like an I Spy game is what I'm feeling.
Yeah,
is there some poutine? What is this? Is this poutine? I'm not sure.
I have no idea. I don't know what's going on in this one, but this is, as you said, it's one of those boards where you can just look at and find something new every single time you look at it. I love this style of art. I think it's great.
Oh, this is wonderful. Yep. Okay, I definitely see why you picked this one.
Yeah, I guess I can't talk about the gameplay itself, and I know this is a board game channel, but sometimes things just go beyond that. And I get it. If a board would sell a game to me just by purely the way it looks, then that's worthy of being on the list.
So where did you learn about this one? How did you figure out about this game existence?
I think I might have seen just an odd review, one of the big channels review it, or just come across it by chance. I don't know. I really can't remember, but it's certainly stuck with me, and I've wanted to play it ever since.
Okay, interesting. Okay, this is cool. I really appreciate that you put this on the list because just the fact that you can see something and it stuck out to you, that's super cool. So is this one you're gonna hunt down and try?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. As soon as I see this one, I want to try it. I mean, I'm sure the game's probably not that great, but well, I'm guessing, but I love the way it looks. This is exactly what I like. It's just fantastic.
Don't let the ratings stop you. Enjoy what you need. All right.
It's relatively well rated, actually. But
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. But I can't comment really.
Okay. I hope that it plays as well as it looks. That's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh man, and Tim agrees with us. He says the board is amazing, which I agree. I mean, you can't really deny it. Oh man, that's really funny. All right, so I'll be honest. My next two are very mechanics heavy. So I focused a lot on mechanics on my list because I really do think that a good board can help someone get into a game. And I think this game is huge. It looks intimidating, but the way the board is organized is going to help anybody learn how to play the game and jump into it quickly. In this game, you're going to be playing as Vikings, collecting stuff and putting it on islands and your own personal board, and you are just going to be filling up stuff as much as possible. And you've got like 100 spots that you can go to. It's a worker placement game where you're not having to spend time getting workers. You just got to go do stuff. It's got that awesome worker placement style of barrage where you can, the more you put to a spot, generally the stronger the action is going to be. I really like this one. Uwe Rosenberg. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. What are we doing today? Number 3. Any ideas? You got it. Feast for Odin. So Feast for Odin is a worker placement game where, like I said, you're going to be getting stuff. And this stuff is generally in the form of polyomino tiles. And the polyominoes, you're going to be kind of puzzling appropriately into lots of island boards in order to get all this income to get more stuff. So the most unique thing about this game is the board itself. So this game boasts having like 1,000 worker placement spots. Well, that's not true. It's a little too much, but it's got a lot of worker placement spots. But my favorite part of this is how they are organized. It makes teaching the game a breeze. It makes jumping into the gameplay awesome. And if you look at the board this way, it'll make the accessibility of it go up dramatically. And it'll be something that you'll want to come back to because, hey, maybe I want to try this section or this section. So let's take a look at what this board looks like. So as you can see, it's pretty busy, but each section of this board is separated into a category. You've got build houses, you've got hunting, you have go to the market, you've got mountain and trade. So you've got all of these sections, but you've got about maybe 1 to 4 different spaces per section. But the coolest thing is these spaces scale. So on the far left, you put 1 dude there, you get a pretty crap power. You go to the far right, though, you get an insane power, but it's going to cost you 4 dudes. But they all are in the same realm of ability. So if you go to the mountain, you're going to get 2 things if you send 1 dude. But if you go 4 dudes, you're going to get like 8 things and a bunch of upgrades, something crazy. But I love the organization of this. It's a giant spreadsheet, but it's a pretty one and it's functional. So I think that any board that facilitates a game that's this complex is welcome in my book. And I think it's one of the best at what it does with that organization. So I really enjoy the organization system of the boards in Feast for Odin, specifically this worker placement board. Have you dabbled in this one at all? Does it fit your requirements of worker placements that you are interested in or enjoy?
I haven't played it, but I do typically. I do want to. The only thing that concerns me is worker placement games. I love that tense feeling where someone grabs some spot and I can't have it anymore, or vice versa. And obviously, with so many spots here, I take it there's always going to be a decent spot you can go to. You can pretty much probably adjust on the fly. So yeah, that slightly concerns me. And obviously, it's a hell of a beast of a game. You've got a lot that looks quite intimidating. But I think the more and more I hear about this game, the more I do want to try it, because I've had quite a lot of those concerns, alleviated by people like yourself saying, it's not an issue. The game is still really strong, and you can take just slightly, worse actions than the ones higher than it. So I know here's a game I want to try. I do have concerns about who am I going to play this with? How often am I going to get it out? Because it is, it's quite a daunting game, really, isn't it? But yeah, I do want to try it.
So I totally understand what you mean by you want there to be competition. I agree with you. I think that makes a healthy game. Now, cool thing about this is if you're competing with somebody for the same style of action, that's going to be some competition, because believe it or not, in this giant board, there's only like 2 spots where you can actually go and hunt a whale. There's only 2 spots where you can do this specific action, and those are going to be contested. And once again, it's up to you to determine how many workers you want to place out. So if you take the 3 worker action, you can kind of look at what other people have, the workers they have left, and kind of strategically go to places to kind of block them from specific actions. So there is some of that, but I think that only really happens in larger games, maybe 3 or 4 players. With 2, it is pretty friendly. If you see somebody going one way, you can go the other. But so I could definitely see maybe that not being for you at a lower player count. But do you usually play in larger groups, or what's your game group usually look like?
My heavier games, I tend to play at 2, maybe 3. And if I start to get to that 4 or 5 player count, I do tend to lean towards lighter, more accessible games. So I feel like if I got a game like Feast for Odin, I would mostly 90% of the time be playing it at 2 players, which naturally
Gotcha.
might not be a good fit.
For that competition you're looking for, probably not. Now, are you a solo player at all, Dan?
Very rarely, very rarely.
Okay. Because this is a fantastic solo game as well.
Okay.
It has this cool mechanism where you block your own spots. So from round to round, you leave your workers. And so you cannot commit to the same strategy every round. So it's really interesting. It opens up a lot of cool possibilities.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's really well done. I think they did a great job. I think Uwe Rosenberg, this is one of his better designs, that's for sure. I think it's great. I really like this one. And I like that it's a Viking theme that's not like super focused on combat. So I think it's refreshing to have something like that. More of a relaxing. Well, there's still, you can raid and pillage if you want, but it's not the forefront of the game. But I do love me some Blood Rage, so I can't complain about those games either. Awesome. So that's number 3. Let's jump to number 2.
Okay, so believe it or not, number 2 is another game I haven't played.
Awesome.
This one is probably more my cup of tea in terms of what the game's about, the kind of style of game. This one is a game called Agra.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Another game with art by Michael Menzel, who did Santiago de Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
This is just quintessentially the style of art I love on a game board. So this one's set in, I suppose, the Far East, I suppose, or at least
India. It's set in India, I believe.
India. Yeah. And yeah, it has a beautiful aesthetic, different kind of color scheme, but with still some really like pops of color. A great kind of scope of this, I suppose, a city or a town. I don't really know how to describe it. With all these different huts and things. And I think gameplay wise, it's traditional kind of resource management, gather stuff and build stuff. Heavy. It looks like there's a lot going on in this game. And again, I've not played it, but it does look like it'll be something I'll be interested in playing. But a big part of that is the actual look of the game. It's a huge board by the looks of it. And on top of the actual board itself, it has quite a lot of different decorative things around the board as well. Like, for example, you've got this big like Sultan's track thing that's on the side that has this big table presence where you are, I suppose, fulfilling contracts and orders and things. I'm not quite sure because I've not played the game myself, but visually, I think it just is absolutely amazing to look at, and certainly want to play this one because I think it's gorgeous.
I don't think the images here are doing it justice, but I could totally get what you mean. It really pops. I do like this giant. It's called the Imperial board.
Okay. Yeah, that looks
cool. Look at that. And it's risen off the board, right? It's a 3D component. So I could definitely see him being this demanding presence as you kind of move your characters up. Interesting.
Yeah. I'm not sure how functionally well this game is because I imagine knocking that over is going to be a bit of a nightmare. But all the things do. Yeah. And it does look, I suppose it looks quite busy in terms of the board itself, but there's no denying how nice it looks. I mean, I love the way it looks.
Wow. Okay, yeah, this looks great. I can't deny that.
Yeah.
But like you, I can't speak to the gameplay at all either. This is not one that I've played. Generally, I don't bring in gigantic, heavy games like this. Like this rating, the heaviness rating of this is like near the same as Lisboa and Feudum.
Yeah.
So this is not one that I generally will bring into the library to show people.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Do you know anybody who owns this game? Do you see yourself trying this in the future?
I definitely will be getting this in the future. Yeah, a bit like a Feast Road, and I'm going to struggle when I'm going to get this to the table because I imagine it's going to take 3 hours to play and probably an hour to teach. And these games aren't the easiest to get played, but it looks like it's got a lot going on in there. Probably a lot of different strategies, lots of symbology, but that board is doing a good job of definitely fish hooking me into getting this one.
It's selling me. I'm not gonna lie. This looks pretty great. And have you seen the metal coins for this game?
I haven't actually. No.
They are hot. They look real good. So it's got that same color palette as the game itself, but it's got like this really nice muted metallic, obviously, but it's got this muted metallic color to it. It's great. I think the whole production of this is wonderful. This is honestly one I would like to try to see if it would be teachable. but
Yeah.
it's not one that I'm going to go out and find myself.
Okay. Yeah, that's understandable. I like the way the kind of traditional bright Euro pieces are so like contrasting to the actual board itself. You know, when you're playing your pieces, you've got this bright red piece sitting on top of this piece of art. I like it.
The brightness of this reminds me a lot of Tekenu's pieces, where you have all of these beautifully colored things on this like sand. So it reminds me a lot of that. You got a brown background with these gorgeous pieces. I really like this one.
Yeah.
Great choice, Dan. Awesome. So that's number 2. I honestly didn't even think about this game. So yeah, excited. Awesome. All right. My number 2 is probably the least complicated board in all of the games I've chosen. This is purely functional. I could care less about how it looks. This came out last year, this board. This is a re-implementation of a gigantic game. It is a cooperative game where you're going to be doing some dungeon crawling, where you're a bunch of mercenaries, part of a crew, and you have these different missions you're going out. You're going to be leveling up your characters, and it's an extremely tactical puzzle game. Any idea what I'm talking about here?
It's Jaws of the Lion?
That is correct. So this is number 2, Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. So I really like Gloomhaven's system as a whole. I've played through the main campaign twice of the game, so the original game. Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, I don't like as much as Gloomhaven. I think that it's not as much there. You're not unlocking things as quickly as the original game. There's not a lot of incentive to keep playing as opposed to the original campaign. But Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion does the best thing possible for the game, and that is taking the board and turning it into a book. It reduces the setup time. It allows you to jump into scenarios quickly. It puts the art right on the board, which means that you're able to custom tailor a scenario's section in the book to whatever map you're looking at. So you can really put in that detailed artwork into it and really make each scenario feel special. And I think that Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion does it spectacularly with its scenario book. And it did it so well that they're actually taking the idea of the scenario book and they're going to be putting it into the main game's boards. So they're going to convert the old school boards into this scenario book, which I think is amazing. I think that is the best move they could have done. I think they're going to get a lot of people to get this. It's going to get more people to play Jaws of the Lion, to get more people to play the original Gloomhaven as well as the new Frosthaven. And you can kind of see the board here. It's in a spiral bound notebook. You simply plop it open, populate the monsters, and you're ready to go. I think it's amazing. I think it's the best choice they could have done for this game. And it's what is making it so accessible, in my opinion. So do you have any experience with Gloomhaven? Is this a system you enjoy?
I don't, because I suppose these big campaign style games generally don't fit my kind of gaming lifestyle, I suppose. So I like to play lots of variable different things, and I prefer not to invest so much time into one particular game.
Gotcha.
I know certainly these kind of books and things are becoming more and more prevalent now. It seems like it's a bit of a trend at the moment, and I think it's a cool idea. It looks great, and I would like to give this game a go, because I've heard it's surprisingly Euro in the way it plays, which naturally intrigues me. And obviously, being Gloomhaven itself being number 1 by quite a distance now, surely that's got to mean something. So I would want to try it, but yeah, again, not something I want for my collection right now anyway, because it doesn't fit the kind of game I'm looking for, I suppose.
Totally makes sense, and I wouldn't press this on somebody that doesn't join that style of game. But yeah. I think that the way it introduces the board for specific scenarios is amazing. And like you said, people are using this a lot in their games. For example, Sleeping Gods uses this. I think it's called the Dragon's Almanac, that newer game, is also using this system. But I think this is the pinnacle of it. It takes all the artwork. It takes an entire scenario, an entire map. It puts key features on the board to where you allocate tokens. It separates the scenario well, and it adds text to the sides. It really uses all of the space well. And it even has this supplemental book. So where if you're playing on a larger map, you can take the supplemental book and kind of attach it to the side, and it can make the scenario even bigger, or it can add additional text. and it's not ruining anything. It's just so good. I love what they did here. I think it's a wonder. I think they did so good.
Sounds very clever. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with Tim here. He says a book's a great idea. He hopes to see it in other campaign games. I totally agree. I think that tiles are the bane of my existence when you have to build a map full of tiles. If you need 18 Plano boxes to organize your tiles, super frustrating. I really enjoy games like Street Masters and Jaws of the Lion, where you can just it's a single big tile, and that's what you're playing on. Or you open a page and you're there, you're ready to go, as opposed to having to kind of piece together things. But I totally agree. I think that this is a great step in the right direction for these larger campaign games. It's going to get them played, and I think that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Are you ready for number one?
I'm ready for number one, and believe it or not, this is a game I've actually played this time. So
there we go. Awesome.
This one is by one of my favorite designers of all time, Stefan Feld. This one is Merlin. Now, Merlin is a game. I know people don't regard it as one of the best Feld games. People don't, essentially a roll and move rondel style game. I actually really love the gameplay. I love the way it flows. I love the different combos you can get. But I love the way this game looks, and I think generally that's quite accepted. It is a good-looking game, but I just love it really pops. It's got this huge rondel made up of all these different kind of castles, I suppose. Really bright, vibrant colors. It's just a big kaleidoscope of color with all these kind of Arthurian legends artwork, and it has a real throwback feel, but it still feels modern. And I just visually, I think this game just has everything I love. I think probably one of the most photogenic games. I think it's just an absolute brilliant board game design, at least in terms of its visual appeal, and lots of iconography, lots of symbology. They're all pretty simple in their own respect, but probably quite daunting to look at initially. But I just think it pops wonderfully and it looks fantastic on the table.
I agree with this. So this was one of the first board games I actually got entering this hobby space.
Okay.
I ordered it on like the Essen piggyback thing. So where I ordered it, somebody brought it back from Essen for me so I could get it right away. Because I love the look of it. I absolutely agree with you. This is stunning. This is a great looking game. Oh my gosh. This is a great choice. This is a great choice.
I thought from your facial expression there, you were like, "Oh, I disagree with this one."
Oh no, I completely agree in the aspect of art. I completely agree with some other people that this game is not very good. So I don't like this game at all. So this was like the saddest thing because I had the game, I was playing it, I'm like, I don't like it, but it's so pretty. It was, there's a point when you're playing board games where you have to decide, do I keep a game even though it's bad, or do I push it forward? But this was like that was my turning point where I had to decide if I was ready to get rid of games because it is so pretty. Oh yeah. Man, I totally agree with you. Even down from like to the cards to the art on like the specific knights. And I really like how you described the feeling of the game as it's got a classic style, but it's very much a modern game. And I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
What are your
So I say, in addition to the actual main board itself, your individual player boards are quite interesting too, because like with a lot of Feld games, you've got to fight off something that's attacking you every round, whatever. And these ones, you have these invaders, and they actually plug into the top of your individual player boards like proper in a satisfying way. And it just, I just love, or I generally love this kind of Arthurian legend medieval feel anyway. And that kind of theme mixed with this quintessential board game visual. I love it. It just looks wonderful.
I totally agree with you. I think it's a great choice. I think it's really pretty. I love the kind of personalized pieces, as well as even the little Merlin piece. I think that's adorable. I like you covered it. You covered it really well. Like you said, super satisfying. Feld has done this on a lot of his recent games as well, with like Bonfire, where everything fits really nicely into its own little spot. So I think it's a wonderful package. So I think this is a great number one. I really can't disagree with you on it's beautiful. This game is beautiful and it makes sense. It's all symmetrical while being unique and different. I love it.
And have you tried the expansion for this one, Mackenzie?
I haven't. So, like I said, I got this game in like 2017, early 2017, and after like 3 months, it was gone. Like it was not one that stuck around. So, did not get to play it. So, what is the expansion? What is it? What does it change? Have you played?
The expansion takes this game from I can appreciate where people don't like this game, but the expansion does, or I think it's essential. It's probably one of the best expansions I've ever seen. It adds it adds an inner rondel to the other one, and that has the Arthur piece in it, and you've got an Arthur dice as well, and you are going to be using that one to take other benefits. But there are other spots where if you kind of move your individual knight a certain amount of spots, then it might say move the Arthur knight a number of spots. So the kind of more combinations come into play. There's more options. It's a much better game. Even I do like the base game, but I can completely appreciate while it's not enough for some people and maybe it's a bit too luck driven for a Feld. Arthur adds so much more satisfaction in the gameplay. It adds so much more choices. The tension, obviously, because it's another communally driven piece like Merlin is.
Okay.
It adds a bit more player interaction because you don't want people to move him before you do, and etc. I think it's completely essential.
Okay. Oh man, Dan, you're gonna cause me to have to play a lot of games, man. All right. So is this one that I'm gonna have to get back? Is it worth? Because I know they just released like a big box that's got like the fancy organizers. I'm a sucker for those. So
I do think if you were categorically certain that this game isn't for you, then I would say this isn't probably going to rescue it for you.
Okay.
But if you're on the fence and you think this could be good, I'm just not quite sure. I think the Arthur expansion will kind of take it past the line in making you enjoy it. But just my opinion. But it worked for me.
Okay. Awesome. Interesting. All right. So there's our number one from the leading authority on boards and board games, chairman of the board. So number one is Merlin. All right. Awesome. So I'll go ahead and go on to my number one. So my number one is actually a crossover. And I think you said it perfectly. When I thought of this list, this is the first thing that came to my mind. It's the most functional, and it can also be the most beautiful. It depends on the person doing the paint job. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here. Any ideas?
Zulk in the Mayan calendar.
It's got to be Zulk in the Mayan calendar. That's right. So we talked about this a lot before, so I'm not going to hamper on. I think you're totally right on this. I think it's functional, it's beautiful, and it adds a really cool whole idea to the game. You have a lot to think about. The way that the calendar actually moves and it will age your pieces up, the way that you can kind of force it to move additional spaces, the way that you interact with the different workers of yourself and others. It's huge. And this is so cool. I love everything about this. I love all the map. I love the different pyramids that they represent. And the board itself is just this wonderful art piece. And it's so unique. And like you said, no one's copied it because I don't know if anybody knows if they can. It's a really hard thing to replicate the beauty of this game and the integration of the gears and the system as a whole. So I'll be excited when somebody does. Because heck, I would love more of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And he said, not only is this look great, that it's not even a gimmick. It's functional to the game because it's integral to the game. And it's just a whole different dimension of a worker placement game that I just beyond words can describe how good this game is.
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, I knew this was going to be on both of our lists because I knew you really like this game. And I think it's a perfect fit for the list. I think it's wonderful in what it does. Yeah, it's a crossover, Tim. You got it. Unbelievable. I know. Our one and only crossover. Oh man. So totally agree. Like I said, I'm not going to hamper on this one. We've talked about it a lot already, but it's great. I really like Zulk in the Mayan calendar.
This could have easily have been my number one if I looked at it from a purely functional and mechanical point of view, it would have been number one. It just, I suppose, when I wrote my list, I was just in the headspace of what do I like the look of, rather than what's the functionality of the game. But yeah, this would certainly be number one if I was looking at it through those eyes. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, do you have any honorable mentions that you think should have made your list, maybe, or some that you just want to mention in general?
Yeah, so I wrote a few down. So, like you said, Praga was very close to being on the list. Merv, a game from last year. I love the look of that one. Nice, bright, again, kind of I suppose Indian style theme. Looks beautiful. Was Ian O'Toole art on that one. Really pops. Looks great. What other games have we got down here? Adventureland, which was a kind of a family-friendly Kramer and Kiesling game. Kind of has a landscape, all these different terrains, and you are basically moving down this grid. Really, really nice looking game. I won't go too far into it. Francis Drake as well. That was a really nice looking board, really imposing old style map game. Lots and lots of games out there that I could talk, but I won't go on too much.
Gotcha. So the two biggest ones for me were Smartphone Inc. So Smartphone Inc., I think the board's fine, but the biggest thing that it does is it has a recessed board. And I think that's super cool. Like, all the pieces fit super nicely inside, and it's just super nice to play on. So you can actually put the pieces inside the board, and the board's thick, so it is double layered. So I think it's just super nice. Like, it adds to the production. It just makes you feel awesome when you're playing it. But not really functional. It's fine. Like, it doesn't really do anything crazy, and the board is not the prettiest thing in the world. So I didn't think it needed to be on this list. And then the other honorable mention I had was for it's not a board, it's a playmat, because the board itself are just tiles. But the playmat for Atlantis Rising, have you seen that?
Oh no, I haven't seen the playboard. I've seen the board itself, but not the mat.
So I might have to pull this up, because the Atlantis Rising playmat is so good looking. So it takes the idea of, the tiles, it's this big peninsula, right?
Yeah.
You have all of these peninsulas coming off, but the playmat is the ocean. And the reason it looks so good is because the back of the tiles are actually they're submerged pieces of the island, so it blends into the playmat. It looks so good. I was so surprised, but it's not the board; it's a playmat. So I disqualified it from the list. But man, if I'm not going to show it right now because it's that hot, here's a good shot of it. Okay, so this thing is beautiful, and I think the mat just in general is great. Vincent Dutrait does an awesome job with artwork. But this, you can kind of see it here on this image. You can see how the islands kind of sink into the playmats behind. So not the greatest shot. I don't post any of my pictures on here, but if I could. Oh, man. But the playmat does it justice. Here we go. Here's a good one. So you can see the whole playmat here, and here with the tiles sunk. So it's just gorgeous, I think.
Yeah, that looks very cool. I like the look of that.
Look at this thing. Oof. And they all feature the islands thematically, so you can actually just take them off the board instead, and it kind of feels like they're actually sinking. It's really neat. I think they did a great job with this playmat.
That looks fantastic.
Sweet. Well, anything else you want to mention or talk about before we close up here?
No, just thank you very much for having me on. It's been a lot of fun. Apologize for the technical issues at the start, and then I've been holding my phone up for a couple of hours now, and hopefully the audio is all right and it's not been too shaky.
I think you sound great.
Good.
I feel that this went smoothly. Thanks so much for coming on. I know that this is your day off, so I really do appreciate you coming in. It's been a blast to have you, a blast to talk to you. And yeah, thanks so much, Dan. I really appreciate it.
No, you too. Absolute pleasure. Anytime. We'll do something like this in the future as well. It'd be good.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. So we can definitely do it on your channel next time. I'm really excited to work more with the chairman of the board.
Thank you very much. And,
all right. Have a great one, Dan. See you later.